Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thank you for spending part of your evening with us tonight. A machete attack in Windsor has sent 3 people to hospital. Police say Major Crimes is investigating, plus another Bank of Canada interest rate increase. The hike has people panicking about mortgages as more people turn to food banks that are already struggling for donations. And Canadian Snowbird celebrate over a proposed U.S. bill that would extend their stay. In the early hours of this morning, 3 people were attacked with a machete. Officers were called to Wyandotte Street East and Langlois Avenue around 3 a.m. According to police, the 3 victims were sitting on a public bench when a white van drove up to them. A masked person then got out of the van and attacked the people on the bench with a machete. The suspect got back inside the van with 2 other people already inside and drove away. Police found those 3 victims with slash wounds to their arms. The 2 adult women and 1 adult man were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police did not answer any questions about the attack today. They're asking anyone in the area at the time who has video footage to contact the Major Crimes Unit. Windsor Police told CBC News earlier today there may be more details later this evening. You can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor for any updates. Well, as expected, the Bank of Canada has raised its benchmark interest rate by 1/4 point to 5%. It's the 10th rate hike in less than a year and a half, and it's another blow for borrowers, especially those with variable rate loans. But as Philip DeMonte reports, the central bank intends to stay the course in its fight against inflation.
Lena Shandy purchased this townhouse 7 years ago in Vancouver's largest suburb. Her mortgage payments have just about doubled since.
Just a little bit under half my paycheck. I want to know, at what point does it stop? Do people have to be forced out of their houses?
The Bank of Canada raised its key interest rate by another 25 basis points, hitting 5% for the first time in 22 years. Governor Tiff Macklem says core inflation remains stubbornly high and points to signs of excess demand in the economy.
We know that if we don't do enough now, we'll likely have to do even more later. We also know, though, that if we do more than we need now, it's going to be unnecessarily painful.
Which some homeowners say is already the case.
It's difficult. It's not only difficult, it's impossible to upgrade from $700 per month. So we extend the amortization.
From 25 years to 40 years, he says. This long stretch of rate hikes have all been aimed at taming inflation, but now mortgage costs have become the biggest contributor. This economist says that's a price the Bank of Canada is willing to pay.
It's always the case that in a tightening situation, you're going to have to concede some inflation in some areas in order to extract this inflation elsewhere. And I think that's the broad game plan, is that they're hoping that this will demand households to make sacrifices in their budgets and to cut back on really the non-essential type of spending.
Even with such cutbacks, the central bank says the economy can avoid a major downturn.
In our forecast, there is a path back to price stability while maintaining growth. So there is no recession.
The Bank of Canada now expects to reach its 2% inflation target by the middle of 2025. That's about half a year later than it previously projected. And to get there, the central bank isn't ruling out more rate hikes. Philippe DeMonte, CBC News, Toronto.
As you may be feeling yourself, the latest hike has put people in panic mode. A Windsor mortgage broker says people are really starting to notice jumps in mortgage payments. The best thing she says people can do today, look over your mortgage contract and try to find some ways to buy yourself some time.
It's all about knowing what your contract says. The government is telling the banks and the lenders to help people by re-amortizing, taking their mortgage and kind of zhuzhing it up to make sure to really bring down that payment. You can re-amortize. There's different ways of doing it, but you just have to know what your contract says and what you can do with your mortgage and try to buy time, because we know interest rates are going to come down. We just need to buy that time for a year or so you don't have to get into selling your home and and where are you going to go? You're going to have to rent, right? Or buy another house.
We continue to see the fallout from rising costs across the city, specifically at food banks who say usage is up while donations are down. The CBC's Lamia Abuzaid reports.
People who were donating to the food bank are now accessing it.
Hannah DeLupin has been a volunteer with the Unemployed Help Center Hub of Opportunities for years. She says donations are needed more than ever to keep up with demand.
So there's a fridge in the back, and it was basically always stacked with fresh produce and donation bins from food drives across Windsor. And now there's a lot more space.
There's new clients coming in all the time, and they're noticing a change.
A lot of them are educated, a lot of them are working, a lot of them are in the workforce.
United Way says West Windsor has seen the highest increase in food bank usage. They're tracking a rise across Windsor-Essex.
You know, government has to intervene here. I mean, we need more affordable housing, and that's obviously not a quick fix, right? So we know that. We need to get food inflation under control. I know that the federal government, people just received kind of a check, right, from the federal government to help offset some of the food inflation costs. I mean, certainly that helps, but it's just not enough because we already had an increasing number of families utilizing food banks.
We were serving once a week. We've had to reduce to twice a month because donations have decreased. And we know it's due to the cost of food and also inflation.
UHC Windsor is seeing a significant increase this year so far for the first-time users compared to the same time last year. Mira says while the grocery rebate will help individuals and families one time, she wants to see food prices reduced so people can purchase and enjoy nutritional food. Lamia Abuzaid, CBC News, Windsor.
More help for those in a mental health crisis. Safe Beds program in Windsor is adding more intake hours with the goal to give specialized help to the people who need it.
We were open from 4 p.m. to 8 a.m. and we had to ask people to leave during the day, which kind of was a barrier for our services. And then with the outcomes that we've had and the successes that we've had, we received more funding to go to 24 hours.
This is one of the 4 rooms at Safe Beds people can use. The program first opened in 2020. It's designed for people who need short-term mental health and addictions crisis support. A person can stay up to 30 days. The program is designed around a trauma-informed approach. Most people who use the center are unhoused. Safe Beds is primarily used by people who have been referred by police. That's a big reason why the space wanted to be open 24 hours a day.
It was essential. We are now open while everyone else is open, so we're able to make those referrals faster and connections faster. People are able to stabilize better, right? When you are in a place and leaving a place and coming and going, it's not quite providing a stable environment that you really need, right? And that's what's so special about this is people are able to stay here. They have their room, they have their space, they have access to 24/7 supports for mental health and addictions. And so going 24 hours has been absolutely essential to our service and providing the level of service that we do. I would love to see continued growth in what we're doing, programming specifically inside of Safe Beds, right? We brought on our addiction specialists, and that has been an amazing experience. She's such a phenomenal worker, and she's been able to provide that addiction support, and the team has been developing programming in here. And then beyond that, a place after Safe Beds, right? Private market is getting more and more difficult, and not everyone is suitable for a rest home or other options that might be available. And people need more time to stabilize and build skills and build that independence, right? So many of the people that we see are in that cycle of incarceration, being unhoused, getting into housing, losing that housing, right? It's so important that we're giving people supports and wrapping around that care and having more time. So transitional housing would be a great next step from this.
Automakers are warning that a strike in British Columbia is creating supply chain problems and product shortages. The BC port strike is entering the 2nd week. Both sides now have a recommended terms of a settlement from the federal labor minister. They now have until tomorrow night to respond. Labor Minister Seamus O'Regan ordered the recommendations, saying differences between the employers and the union are not enough to justify continuing the work stoppage. CBC's Michelle Gassoub reports.
There's little movement at the shipyard or at the bargaining table. Canada's auto industry now warning the longer the wait for a resolution, the more backed up supply chains will get.
It's made a bad situation worse. And, unfortunately, it's a situation where nobody can give the consumer a satisfactory answer in terms of when their vehicle is actually going to arrive.
Canada imports most of its cars through Japan and South Korea, with most of them shipped through the port of Vancouver. Manufacturers are now left scrambling to find alternate routes.
Some of them are, in fact, sending ships down through the Suez Canal to Texas and other places for unloading, which of course is going to significantly delay the process.
Others are putting cars and car parts on American rail cars, but that temporary solution will soon turn expensive.
But at some point, those costs do become exorbitant and do ultimately filter down to the customer level as well. So in an age where, the average new car payment currently is about $800 a month, it's only going to make that, the affordability challenge that much greater.
The automobile industry was already dealing with backlogs thanks to the pandemic and a global chip shortage. CBC News asked the province whether BC's supply chains are secure in the wake of the strike and whether consumers could soon feel the impact. The province said only in a written statement, "We're continuing to strengthen our supply chain network, and we encourage both parties to urgently get back to the bargaining table to work out an end to the dispute."
Your fight is our fight!
With striking workers asking for better wages and protections still holding the line, a long wait and heftier price tags to buy a car could be in Canadians' future. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, some of Canada's premiers expressing their dismay today at the Bank of Canada's interest rate hike. That was discussed at their meeting in Winnipeg, with some saying there are other ways to control inflation.
The long-term strategy to addressing inflation, in my opinion, is high-quality infrastructure that gets our exports out to a global market and gets our imports in with a minimum amount of friction so that it's cheaper for British Columbians and all Canadians.
The Premier is also calling for a meeting with the Prime Minister to discuss infrastructure. The federal government signaled it will be spending more on infrastructure, including more money for affordable housing. Well, some good news for Windsor, Essex County folk who head south every winter. A new proposed law in the United States will allow snowbirds to stay down south 2 months longer. It's called the Canadian Snowbird Visa Act, and as Dale Mullner shares with us, it has some locals pretty excited.
To our extended time in our happy place.
In our happy place.
Leanne Godden, her husband Roy Biancat, and her friend Karen Kaminsky toast the proposed bill they've been anxiously awaiting. They live in Windsor, but also own property in Central Florida. They say they're happy the Canadian Snowbird Visa Act may soon become a reality.
I suffer from seasonal affective disorder, and I just look forward to going to the sunshine. I'm a different person in the sun.
It gives me the opportunity to be a little more flexible with which months that I can go down. It gives me the opportunity to come home, participate in family events, emergencies or whatever.
I like to golf, and I play pickleball down there, and it's just, I get more exercise down there.
Currently, Canadians can stay in the U.S. for 182 consecutive days. That would increase to 240 if the bill passes. The new rules would apply to Canadians who reside in Canada and are 50 years old or older and own or rent property in the U.S. It's not for people who want to work in the U.S. The bill has been jointly introduced by a Republican and Democratic congressman and woman. It also has the support of a Michigan congressman as well.
Yeah, the Canadian residents want to stay in the warmer U.S. weather for a longer period of time. And this is one of those pieces of legislation that just makes common sense.
The longer Canadians stay in the U.S., the more money they spend. Kaminsky says that would be a boon to the city where she lives. It has a permanent population of 10,000, but swells to 100,000 with the snowbirds.
There's 100 little lakes all around us where people are fishing and renting boats. So the community has lots of employment while we're there.
And even though the snowbirds aren't spending money here for 2 more months, Kaminsky points out they aren't using health care services here either.
I'm not at the doctor's, I'm not having MRIs, CT scans. It's a win-win.
Now, speaking of healthcare, the longest an Ontarian can stay out of the province and keep their OHIP eligibility is 212 consecutive days. But anyone can apply for an extension to cover the extra time if they want to take advantage of the proposed rules. The bill has the support of the Canadian Snowbirds Association. Congressman Bergman couldn't say when the bill would be passed, but he hopes it will be soon. Meanwhile, Leanne, Karen, and Roy hope to take advantage of it this winter. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Well, 2 nights in a row now, we are talking about some wet conditions, heavy rainfall likely tonight. How much are we talking? Our Colette Kennedy will break that down for us after the commercial. Doctors with the Ontario Medical Association are raising concerns about climate change and the impact on our health.
When the World Health Organization says that this is the single largest threat to health, you have to take that seriously, and you have to understand what that means for our patients, what that means for our planet, and what we as physicians who are regarded as leaders in our community can do to advocate for a healthier planet, because we understand the impacts that has on our patients.
The OMA is calling for action to be taken on climate change due to what healthcare workers are treating. Doctors say they've noticed difficulty in breathing for some people with the smoke from wildfires, people seeking medical care for heat exposure, and an increase in cases of Lyme disease as ticks are able to survive Ontario's warmer winters. Record rainfall in India's capital has swelled a river that runs through the city of 20 million. Water levels in New Delhi are above the danger mark. Officials say the levels are at a 45-year high, and they've started moving people who have been trapped by the fast-rising river water. Hundreds of residents scramble to get to safety and to dry ground. About 2,500 relief camps have been set up to help those being displaced by the floods. Oh, it's been 1 year since NASA started sharing images from the Webb Space Telescope. And to mark the anniversary, the agency has released some stunning views. We'll get a look at a cosmic nursery where stars are born. The pictures show dozens of stars being created in a vast cloud complex some 390 million light years away. The region is full of illuminated gases, jets of hydrogen, and dense cocoons of dust, holding the beginnings of even more stars. None of them appear to be bigger than our sun. Now, scientists say the images offer a glimpse of what our own system would have looked like billions of years ago when it was forming. The Webb Space Telescope is stationed about 1.6 million kilometers away from Earth. Now, Colette Kennedy is back with us tonight. Colette, just looking at those images, like, it's incredible what 100 years has brought us in terms of space exploration.
They're so incredible. It reminds me of like a novel, like the cover of some kind of fantasy novel. Like, I think I see Merlin or Gandalf or somebody in there. Like, it blows my mind, actually. I can spend a lot of time thinking about that stuff.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we have those images to ponder. Okay, a lot to ponder when it comes to the weather story. I want to get right into it. So we do have the special weather statement. This has been in place much of the day for the amount of rainfall that's coming our way, 30 to 50 millimeters. But I do think there are going to be areas that are going to see more than that. And it's in a relatively short period of time, like 6, 7, maybe at most 8 hours. So that becomes a concern for flash flooding. And then we more recently have this severe thunderstorm watch that has been issued. So Windsor is included in this. And this is because this cluster of storms, it has some of the components that we could see when we start to see some rotation. So there's the risk that we could have some severe weather going into later on this evening after 10 o'clock, I would say, as this keeps pressing eastward, but even a few cells bubbling up prior to that. But the real concern is what's happening back here. So there is a tornado watch through the Chicago area, under a tornado watch at the moment. So conditions favorable for that development. And as this moves towards us, because we'll also lose some of the energy from the sun, we can hope that this weakens somewhat with the timing, that it may just help us out here. But just in case, Environment Canada has issued that severe thunderstorm watch. So yeah, light stuff for now. And it did slow down. So the beginning of the day, a little bit nicer. I thought it would move in a bit earlier, but some of this heavier stuff as it comes in, we really do get into more significant downpours and away from just the light stuff. That whole thing has to work its way through. And so we'll kind of push this forward. And you can see how that happens through midnight. I mean, it's gone by about 4 a.m., 5 a.m. It's moved to the east. And so we get into drying conditions, a chance to dry out. But all of this coming, like I say, pretty short time frame here. Behind that, things do improve. A few isolated sprinkles may kind of bubble up, but mostly I think we'll be seeing some nice conditions into Thursday. And then Friday afternoon, evening, it still looks like a good day, but there is a chance we could see also some afternoon convection as the humidity begins to climb a little bit. So some of the chances here taking towards 50 millimeters, the Windsor area, Lakeshore. But like I said, along the North Shore of Lake Erie, I think there will be some areas that pick up even more rainfall than that. Oh, we've lost our current temperature as the system is moving in. But as we look ahead, so tonight, that low around 18 or so, then 25 tomorrow. We'll kick this out of here. Things improve. And then as we go towards the weekend, we do have the chance of getting into that sort of thunderstorm here and there. Not a rain out, but that's what's coming.
I'm here for the dry, not so much for the humidity. Thanks so much for that, Colette.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, Canada's biofuel industry is seeing a major uptick in investment, but there's concerns about subsidies pulling that investment south. More on that coming up. Canada's biofuel industry is experiencing an investment boom. It's being spurred on in part by new clean fuel regulations. That's also good news for farmers who grow canola, a popular crop in Essex County, and a popular raw material for renewable diesel. But the boom could go bust if looming subsidies in the U.S. pull investment out of Canada. CBC's Paula Duhatschek explains.
In recent years, Canadian companies have been putting more money into biofuel projects. Take, for example, Tidewater Renewables. It recently wrapped up construction on the country's first renewable diesel facility near Prince George, BC, or Imperial Oil, which has committed hundreds of millions of dollars to building a similar facility near Edmonton. The boom has been sparked in part by Canada's new clean fuel regulations, which require fossil fuel suppliers to gradually reduce their carbon intensity.
And one of the primary ways that you're going to be able to meet those compliance obligations is through blending of biofuels. So that's a primary topic right now.
The boom in biofuel also means more investment in canola processing. That's good news for farmers like Jeff Nielsen.
We like to see a strong Canadian economy, so the more jobs we can provide here for Canadians, it's a bonus. And for agriculture, we want to see our sector grow too. We're looking for all our customers.
But there's a dark cloud on the horizon. In less than 2 years, the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act will bring in a new tax credit intended to boost clean fuel production. Industry groups worry it will pull investments south of the border and are hoping to see a similar incentive in Ottawa's fall economic statement. As for Jeff Nielsen, he'll sell his canola to whoever is buying, but would rather see the industry and the jobs remain in Canada. Paula Duhacek, CBC News, Calgary.
We have a developing story tonight. This is just coming into our newsroom. A man has fallen off the Ambassador Bridge and into the Detroit River. A spokesperson has confirmed that a construction worker fell from the bridge. It happened about an hour ago, according to eyewitness reports and videos posted on Facebook. The Ambassador Bridge spokesperson says that the person was rescued from the water. We don't know the worker's condition. The employee worked for a contractor. They've been taken to hospital. We'll have details online. That's it for CBC Windsor.